I typically end my podcasts the way I'm going to start this one. Empowered people empower people. With your message in hand and your marketing skills sharpened, my goal is that you can take action and empower others. Now, while I truly believe that empowered people empower people, I also believe that empowered people empower themselves. As owner and chief strategist of the Empower PR Group, I am in the business of empowerment, and today I want to let you in on a little secret. My favorite way to empower myself is by reading. Who would have thought? Hey, I'm Stephanie Fager, and I'm obsessed with empowering you, the nonfiction author, with impactful marketing strategies to help you take your important message and share it with those who desperately need it, want it, and will buy it. Today, I'm sharing with you a way I get empowered, and it's through reading. Since I learned how to read, I could always be found with a book in my hands, and as I've grown, that has remained the same. Books build bridges, not walls. In fact, I've seen them break them down. They invite you into a new way of thinking. They whisk you into a world of make-believe. They spark imagination. They challenge you. They are doors to new opportunities. And today's book is a reminder that they help you finish things. Books are powerful, and I believe that they hold power both through writing them and through reading them. During this pop-up episode, I'm going to prove to you, as I share my favorite insights from a recent book, just how powerful it is to read and how reading could push you, author friend, to become empowered. Are you ready? This is the Empowered Author Podcast. Okay, I have to ask, have you ever read a book that literally has made you LOL? And for those of y'all who are totally over the social media slang, I'm raising my hand here. I'm talking about laughed out loud. Literally, like, I'm not talking about just a chuckle or a giggle, but like a good belly laugh unexpectedly by yourself. It's just you and the book. Yeah. I never had that happen until I read my first book of John Acuff's. I loved that book so much that I purchased a second one right afterwards. And that is the book that I want to talk to you about today. Finish. That is a simple title for a book that is jam-packed with brilliance. It's called Finish, and the subtitle is Give Yourself the Gift of Done. And this holiday season, I couldn't think of a better gift to give itself. And the title, honestly, in and of itself, is proof that really great things can come from short, succinct, pithy, and punchy messages. A beautiful testament and reminder to the power of editing. And I have to say, as a book writer myself, the title is always the hardest part. Am I right? Can I get an amen from you over there listening? Because you want short and pithy. And John has accomplished that with his book, Finish. So I made a pact with myself before I was going to, that I was going to get this book and read it before the new year. So it's December when I'm recording this of 2021. And I decided I'm going to read this book so that I can be prepped and ready for 2022. And, that way I can accomplish some goals like I want to do every year. But the big difference was that this year I didn't just want to create the goals and kind of sort of finish. I really wanted to finish my goals. I wanted to figure out what they were and come up with some clear ways to actually make them happen. So if you're anything like the kazillions of people out there that have a goal and never accomplish it, you're not alone. Hello, I'm here with you. Let's say it together. Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I have a problem, and that is I love creating goals and I hate finishing them. And this book helped uncover why. So if you're like me, January comes, you get pumped to try something new. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to finish something I've already started, or I'm going to dive into something I always wanted to. Maybe that goal is, to write a book. Listen, I have that as a goal for 2022. Oh my gosh, I just put that out in podcast land. Does that mean I have to make it happen? Probably. But also, I don't know about you guys. Typically, when I create one of these goals in January, or really any time for that matter, a few weeks in, I've not only forgotten the goal in the first place, but I've abandoned it and don't even remember what it was. And if that rings a bell, I want you to know you found your safe haven here. And if that didn't ring a bell, well, listen, I want to be more like you when I grow up. Really, I want to understand you. And I think I probably will now because I've read this book. But in all seriousness, listen, we're a society of people who like to start things, but we hate finishing them. And I've been pondering this struggle specifically for us as authors while I was reading this book and really soaking in all of the words of wisdom that John shares. So I've walked away with several insights from the lens of authors, rating, and marketing, and I want to share them with you. So let's dive in and start with a brief overview of the book, Finish, Give Yourself the Gift of Done by John Acuff. So this book to me was different than any book I had picked up before about goal setting because it really wasn't about goal setting or setting goals. Instead, it was about finishing them. And I love how John is sure, I can give you an outline on how to create a goal, but if you're not ready to finish it, what's the point? And in typical John Acuff fashion, it was written with such personality that you didn't even know you were reading. Before you actually knew it, you finished a goal immediately. You finished reading his book from cover to cover. I think I got the whole book read in less than a week. And that's pretty big for me. I'm a fast reader, but my reading capacity is limited. I'm not sure if I've shared this with y'all yet, but I will now because as we're diving into some of these pop-up episodes, you'd be like, Stephanie, how in the world are you getting all these books read? And I have to tell you, I am a mother of 3. I homeschool those little squirts right now. And I run a business, so I'm busy. So how do I find time to read? My favorite time to read is in the morning when I'm blow drying my hair. So what does that tell you about me? It's one, I'm really great at multitasking. In fact, my brain requires me to multitask. I can't just sit down and think and just focus. I'm always have to be thinking about something else. I can't just do one thing. I have to be doing multiple things. But the other thing is I'm really good at leveraging capacity and time and management when it comes to books. So I have pretty thick hair and it takes me 15 minutes to blow dry it in the morning if I don't let it air dry. So I use that time to read. So we're talking 15 minutes in the morning and possibly 15 minutes in the evening when my husband's tucking the kids down at night for bed that I get to read. So if I'm telling you that I use that time to finish the book Finish, then that tells you something. And now you know a nugget about me and my thick hair. But for the perfectionists out there, this book really outlines how to move past perfectionism with specific recommendations. Y'all, I'm a perfectionist to a T, not kind of, sorta, completely, utterly immersed in perfectionism. And when I start something and it's not perfect, when I'm not completing it perfectly, I like to abandon it because I get scared. Yay, lucky me for one of the side effects of perfectionism. But this book was a godsend to me, finding it really was, because it helped me realize that perfectionism and completion are arch nemesises. Is that even a word? And they're enemies. They're villains of one another. They're not a yin and yang. They're like oil and water. They fight each other. And if I wanted to accomplish something, I realized I needed to pick which one I was going to align with. Was I going to choose Miss Perfectionism or Miss Finish? And I decided to slay the perfectionism and embrace the finish. But to do that, it came with some hard kind of pills to swallow. And I want to walk you through my 3 favorite ones, those 3 key takeaways that I think might be really, really helpful for you too. So what I love most about John is that he uses science and research to back up his claims. So he doesn't just throw out all of these nice, fluffy ideas. He actually leverages research he's conducted with a researcher. It's so cool. And he shares the science behind every detail. So there was a study he conducted, and he walked away from that study with these 8 ways on how to finish a goal. And my favorite 3, really 4, I'm throwing in a 4th one for you, are these. The first one talks about the day before perfect and the day before done. And those are two massive days and goal accomplishment that I want to talk to you about. The second is he shares some really tangible, concrete ways on how to create more successful goals from the very beginning. And the third is some tips on how to stop getting in your own way of finishing. So I want to give you those kind of through the lens as an author, some things to consider. So the first key takeaway is there are 2 days to look for that could cause you to stop dead in your tracks. And that is the day before perfect and the day before done. Now let me backtrack. That is the day after perfect and the day before done. So we're talking about what happens the day after you don't do something right. And that is the day after perfect. So it took me, I'm going to give you some examples for myself. So I remember the day after I got feedback from my editorial board on my book. My book was going great. I thought it was perfect. I thought things were going wonderfully. I was moving on with some really good energy. And then I got some feedback and it wasn't perfect. Yeah. So what did I do? That was the day after perfect. I put the book down for almost a year and didn't pick it back up. Or what about the week that I fell behind on my podcast production? Go back and look in between October and December 2021. Yeah, there was like a 2-month break because instead of just picking up and doing the next week, I was like, oh, it's not perfect. I can't do any more for a while. I had to talk myself into bringing more podcasts on. And I love podcasting. So that was silly. Or what about the day you were on a roll writing your book, but the kids got sick and you couldn't write anymore? I've done that before with blogging. Oh, I can't write anymore, so I might as well just stop blogging altogether. That is so irrational. Or what about the day that you ate the cupcake on your diet? Or the day you didn't exercise in the morning and the day that you stopped doing something else that's close to your goal? That is what is called the day after perfect. And that is a day that most people quit altogether. They don't just taper off. They just say, if it's not perfect, I'm not doing it. I'm just going to surrender and walk away. Yeah. When I read that in the book, I was like, John, you are speaking to me. You are talking in my language, because it's true. That day is the day I just want to give up. And his question is, why? Are you kidding? Look at how much progress you have made. See, perfectionism is the problem. And perfectionism is probably the problem in the first place because we set our goals so high where we might not even be able to accomplish it in the first place. I look at some of my goals for 2022 and I'm just shaking my head. One of them I'm going to share with y'all. I just told my husband, I'm I love to read. I'm going to read 52 books in 2022. That's a book a week. I'm just going to do it. Why not? Just do it. And he looked at me, he's like, okay. You can read 52 books in a year. I'm sure you can. But why are you doing that? And I said, because it sounds great on paper. Well, what happens the 1 week that I don't read one? The likelihood is I'll just throw that goal in the garbage instead of looking back and going, oh my gosh, I made it, 10 weeks. I've read 10 books. That's 10 more books than I read before, or what about, some of those recommendations, write your book in 6 weeks. You can do it and then give you some downloadable that can help you do it. I mean, sure, anyone who doesn't have a life can make that happen, but what happens when life happens? What happens when you can't make that happen? You only make through 4 weeks. Oh my gosh, well, I can't make it to the 6 weeks. So that whole month of writing, I'm going to put it in the garbage. I'm going to put it in a file and file it away. Are you kidding? Maybe you have to readjust a little bit and rethink yourself a bit. So John gives in his book a lot of really great tips on how to navigate the day after perfect. And he says that it's actually the most important day in your goal process. Not the day you start, the day after perfect, because that's the day that you keep going. I thought that was brilliant. The other day he wants you to kind of keep your eye open for is the day before done. Again, I also thought that was brilliant because I've been there, I've done that, and I've not done that because of the day before done. So he says he really wants you to watch out the day before everything is complete. And he says that most people, not most, that some people freak out when they get that close to finishing because they have a fear, or one of 3 fears, a fear of what's going to happen next, a fear that it won't be perfect, or a fear what do I do now? And these are irrational fears, but ones we all navigate. Early in the book, he talks about a distraction that we come up against that perfectionism likes to do. See, perfectionism is not our buddies, y'all. It's not our friend. It does not like to work for us. It likes to work against us. And he gives us some tips along the way on how to kind of tackle perfectionism. But one of the recommendations he makes, because let me backtrack. One of the things perfectionism likes to do is when you're working on a goal is it uncovers like 5 other goals that you want to do at the same time, and you can't. You will not be successful at trying to do a kazillion goals when you're trying to accomplish one. Let that sink in for a minute. How can you get one done well if you're focusing on a gazillion or 5 or whatever your kind of capacity is? So he recommends early in the book, that's great to uncover other goals, but write them down and put them down for the day after done. So you have them on your list of something you want to do one day. And it doesn't have to be like so far in the future it's not real or achievable, but it's just after you complete this one. So some of those fears, like what's happening next or what now, can be squashed because you already know what's going to happen next. And you already know what you're going to do now once you get to the day after done is you've got another goal. So just pick it up. I find this specifically for me in writing more books. So I have several books, actually, like 3 books I've come up with, maybe a 4th one. And I've started writing all of them. I've got, 3 I know for sure of that are in like early to mid stages, but I've decided I'm just going to do them all at once, but they're not perfect. I can't get them all done perfectly. So they're all just sitting there. And that sure doesn't help you, listener, potential reader out there, right? Like, wouldn't you love one of those books? Like one would be better than trying to get all of them done. So he says, don't worry about that. Put that in your parking lot. Put the other ones in the parking lot and just get this first book done with the others in the parking lot so that when you get over the finish line, you have something else to work on. You don't have to worry about what now or what's going to happen next year. I got that figured out. So I thought that was really brilliant. Takeaway number 2 that I thought was interesting was he encourages you to potentially reassess your goal in the first place because that might help you finish it. Actually, the issue with finishing or completing a goal might be that you've set yourself up to fail in the beginning. And I thought he was speaking to me like, Stephanie, hello. Hello, Stephanie out there, reader. This is happening in your life. Like, you're not accomplishing the goals because you set yourself the bar up so high it's not achievable in the first place. So he recommends look for ways to cheat. I thought that was interesting. And he uses the word cheat. I thought that was funny because like I get all like sweaty and break out in splotches if I ever think that there's potential for cheating because I am such a rule follower, which we'll talk about in takeaway number 3. But he says, think about things that you could do that could be making your life and your goal a little bit easier. He gives an example of a guy who is traveling a lot and he buys a suitcase that he lugs around and he's realizing he's getting some back and shoulder issues. And it's like, oh, but I guess he figures if I'm going to travel a lot, I have to carry this heavy bag and look like all the cool kids who have these little briefcases that are carry-on and whatever. And then one day it hits him. He's like, are you kidding? Why don't I get one with rollers? And I'm going to get a luggage with rollers and it makes life easier. Yes, and that's not cheating. So think about your goal, whatever that is. Maybe it is building your social media presence up. Maybe it's about being more visible. Maybe it's being on more podcasts as guests. Okay, so that sounds great. But what could you do to make it easier? Could you, have somebody help you do some research to find the right podcasts? Could you ask your friends if they know podcasts and do virtual introductions? Like that feels like cheating, but it doesn't have to be because actually that could be better because word of mouth recommendations go far, far farther. Far farther. Ooh, write that in your book. I'm sure your editor will edit that out. It will go much farther than cold calls or cold leads. And he gives 2 specific tips I thought were interesting and I'm starting to use myself. The first one to help make sure that you've got a goal that's achievable in the first place is he says, cut your goal in half. Like before you even start it, cut it in half. So that read 52 books in a year, cut it in half. Wait, what if I were to read half of the 52? Doesn't have to be all of the 52. What if I read 26? Ooh, that would be more than I read this year. That would be great. Still like a reach goal, but what happens then is you'll likely achieve it and exceed it. Think about that in your book marketing efforts. Like maybe your goal is to get into, 50 bookstores. Well, what if you just focused on 10? What if your goal would be to sell 100 more books? Well, maybe instead look at selling 50, right? Like 50 books is more than that is more than where you're at right now. So I loved when he said, cut your goal in half. The second one for this key takeaway I thought was interesting is he said, decide in the beginning what you're going to bomb. So again, this is what I love about John is he speaks to my soul. For you to accomplish a goal, the likelihood is you're going to have to give up and like not accomplish something else. You're going to bomb something. For him, like he bombs cutting the grass. Like he finally gave up. He's like, look, I'm just going to pay someone to work in the yard. I've got other goals. And that is okay. So like decide in the beginning, what is a goal of yours and what are you not going to do well? Because it's going to happen anyway. So you might as well just make the decision. So for instance, for me, I realized, and this was something early on I was not okay with, but I realized that because of the fact that that I have 3 kids and I homeschool and work, that my most productive work times are in the mornings before everybody wakes up, because I love that quiet time, and in the afternoons and evenings. So what that means is breakfast and dinner, like it kind of mess up my jam, right? Like it kind of breaks my flow. So I have just decided I'm going to bomb that for a little bit. Like where I'm at in this season of my life, I'm not going to stress out on that. And I'm going to pass the baton to my husband. And y'all, he has not just risen to the occasion, but he has created some of the most innovative, delicious meals out there. And I'm like, I don't even want to go back to cooking. Please make your homemade chocolate chip muffins and your delicious, tacos or what have you. So decide at the beginning what you're going to bomb so you can accomplish your goal. Like just set it up. Just that way you don't feel bad. Because the perfectionism will make you feel bad. And when it makes you feel bad, then you're going to give up on it. Takeaway number 3 that I walked away from is to stop getting my own way of accomplishing this goal. He talks about in the book these secret rules. And again, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I had these secret rules. But you're right, John, I sure do. And what he mentions is, you don't even know it, but you're creating rules around how you're accomplishing your goal and your goal itself that you feel like you have to hold yourself accountable to, that the rest of the world don't even know. And you don't even really know unless you uncover them. So, he says, think about things that you feel like it has to be done in a certain way. And it just is what it is. And you probably think the world will notice, but the reality is they won't, and they don't care, and they're going to move on. And listen, the world either moving with you or not with you. So you have to decide if you're going to get on that movement boat. And to get on that movement boat is you have to get rid of your secret rules. So he recommends, for you to be thinking, what are rules that you're telling yourself? Maybe it's a rule that, okay, I'll use podcasting for an example. Maybe the rule for me in podcasting, because a lot of my podcasts I put up on YouTube too, is that I have to have my hair and makeup done before I can do the podcast. That is a rule I've made up, which means that if I don't have my hair or makeup done, nobody knows. And what if I just don't put that podcast up on YouTube? No big deal. I don't do my solo episodes on YouTube anyway. Or what about the rule that I can only write a book that I am the top expert on. Ooh, this is a good rule. And why is that? Maybe that would hold you back and make you think you have to get all these accreditations and trainings and what have you under your belt before you can write that book. Let me tell you something. You don't have to do that, because your personal experience has merit and weight and might be better than any accreditation out there that you've gotten. So these are secret rules. Like maybe you're telling yourself you can't market your book unless you 100% can do it yourself. So you're just not going to do it because you can't do it at 100%. Well, that's not true. You can get help. Or what about, I can't be a speaker. I cannot speak on my book's message because I don't know I'm not a trained speaker. I hate to break it to you, but most people are not trained speakers. They learn while they're doing it. So these are secret rules. So he recommends and says you may not know what the secret rules that you're telling yourself are. So he has a couple questions for specifically he wants you to ask yourself to uncover them. Found amazing in the book with lots of different connotations and references and recommendations around it to kind of put a lot of context around these questions. So the first question is, do I even like blank, whatever your goal is? Do I even like to write? Do I even like to market? Let's use that one. Do I even like to do marketing? From my own research, most people would say, no, Stephanie, I don't even like to market it. So why are you trying to do it anyways? Like, why are you telling yourself you have to do it 100% if you don't even like to do it? So this question, do I even like blank, is great, because what'll happen is help you uncover if you even like the goal you've set for yourself. And John reminds us that perfectionism's favorite secret rule is this: miserable, difficult goals are the only ones that count. Like, that you have to hate working out for that to be a goal. No. What if you like to dance? Well, I mean, could you consider dance as a workout? Abso-freaking-lutely you could, but you might say, no, I have to lift weights, I have to exercise for 45 minutes, blah, 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 right? No. So ask yourself, do I even like it? The second one is, what is my real goal? Like, chisel away what you really want to accomplish. Let's use book marketing as an example. Like, do I even like book marketing? Maybe the answer is no, I don't even like doing it. So why is it a goal of mine? And what's your real goal? The real goal is to sell books. So maybe if you figure out what your real goal is, you can make sure you're chasing the right one, and you can get help or figure out the others. The third question is, does the method I'm using match who I am? So you want to make sure that the method of your goal to accomplish is in alignment with you. And that's interesting. Like, he's like going on with the working out example. He's like, he uses the example of P90X. I think John said he started it, and he's like, I did like one episode and didn't finish it. Well, that's okay. It's like me. We'll use me for working out, for instance. Every time I try to do any other form of a workout, I fail unless it's yoga. Yeah, because the method of yoga matches me and the type of like spirituality and like calmness that I seek. So why do I go elsewhere? Why do I try to buy running shoes? Or why do I buy running shoes and try to run? Like, I hate running. It doesn't match me. So make sure that your goal is in alignment with you, and use, and these are secret rules. These help uncover those secret rules. And the fourth secret rule question to ask to uncover a secret rule that you have is it time to quit? Many of us feel like you have to finish that you have to finish a goal you start even if you hate it. Like, it's not a win unless you finish it. And that's not true. Like, if you start something and you hate it, it might be time to quit it and do a different goal. And that is okay. I thought that was really empowering. And you know me, I love empowering things. So who would I recommend this book for? Well, I think that this is a book that talks about something we all need. And I really don't say that lightly. Whether you're a perfectionist or not, this book will speak truth into your life. It will speak truth into your goals, your business, your book. But if you're an author, an aspiring one especially, I found this book to be hopeful in how to make movement on the book, on the business, or anywhere in between. And I really think if that's something you're seeking, you should pick up this book and go for it, because it will inspire you to make that happen. If you are like me and you struggle with perfectionism, I think this book will also help you kick perfectionism to the curb, or at least try to, and continue going back to this book if you find yourself back in that spiral. And if you're tired of not finishing what you start, I think this book will help you reset. If you really, honestly, also want a good book that's going to make you laugh and learn something at the same time, I promise you this is one of them, or any John Acuff's books will be, because he's just a phenomenal writer. I want to end with my favorite quote, and this was in the book, and this was really hard to figure out because I had tons of them that I highlighted, but I thought this one was a really good one. In the book, John says, they think that the opposite of perfectionism is failure, and it's not. The opposite is finished. Those are the doors we stand before in this book and in our lives. One is marked finished and leads to untold opportunities, adventures, and stories. And one is marked perfectionism, and that leads to a solid brick wall of frustration, shame, and incomplete hopes. Like, close your eyes right now and look at those two doors. those two doors that will, that will open up to different opportunities. The one that's marked finished, you're going to get stuff done. You're going to make progress and improvement, and you're going to learn along the way. And it might not be perfect, but that's okay. But if the one that's focused on perfectionism is going to stop you dead in your tracks. And I felt like that quote was probably something I need to put in my office and remind myself, because I used to think perfectionism was something I should be proud of. When I would go and have job interviews and I had to fill out questionnaires or answer what is one of my weaknesses, I always picked perfectionism because I thought it looked good. I thought it showed the quality of detail that I do, but I realize now that it's something that has held me back, and I am, quite frankly, just freaking tired of it. And you might be too. So as this new year unfolds, maybe you want to join me in compartmentalizing that part of you, and you're just ready to get stuff done. If so, let's go make that happen, and let's get something finished. I've made it a goal to own every one of John's books. They will be the ones that I pull out when I need a good laugh and a reminder that I hold the power to my own success in more ways than I know. This book reminded me that I'm the keeper of my goal, the keeper of my progress, and the one that gets across that finish line and celebrate. And you are too. Don't let yourself stand in the way from finishing. All right, empowered friend, never stop being empowered, because empowered people empower people. I've empowered you. Now go pick up a book, pick up the book Finish, and empower yourself more.